Welcome back to another episode of the Security Ledger podcast. I'm Paul Roberts. I'm the editor-in-chief at the Security Ledger. Today with us in the studio, we have Tanya Janca of She Hacks Purple and now Semgrep. And Tanya's in the studio to talk about her upcoming book, Alice and Bob Learn Coding. If you don't know her, she is an amazing InfoSec professional. She's got a 28-year IT career and has won many awards, including OWASP Lifetime Distinguished Member and Hacker of the Year. She's spoken everywhere at pretty much every conference we're speaking at and trained thousands of software developers and IT security professionals via her online academies, We Hack Purple and Semgrep Academy, and her live training programs. And these days, Tanya is the head of education and community at the firm Semgrep, where she speaks about secure coding practices, static analysis, supply chain security, AppSec, you name it, and helps build out and promote a community of security-minded developers. Tanya, welcome.
Paul, thank you so much for having me back. It's so lovely to see you.
It's lovely to see you, and a really great occasion to have you back, which is you got a new book coming out. This is not your first, by the way. In fact, it's not even your first Alice and Bob book, but Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding. It's going to be published by Wiley coming up in February, early February. Really cool topic, very timely. Tell us a little bit about how this came about.
Absolutely. So my first book, I had been blogging quite a bit about the secure system development lifecycle, and a bunch of publishers wrote me and said, you should write a book. And I'm like, I don't know how to write a book. I don't even know how to write a blog. I'm just winging all of this. But then my publisher, Jim Minitel from Wiley, wrote me and he's like, what if you would write a book for Tanya when she first tried to switch from being a developer to application security? What if you wrote that book for her? And so I just wrote out like an outline and he's like, this is amazing. Come on, we got to do it. And I'm like, you're right. Like, this is a great idea. So I did that. And then I started my company, We Hack Purple, which got bought by Semgrep last year. And I basically helped make hundreds of AppSec professionals, just like them reading the book, taking all the classes, and then helping them find jobs and get interviews and all of that. And that was a thing that was really important to me, to get a lot of new people in. But so I've spoken at a lot of conferences. I'm always preaching to the choir, right? So as I speak at security conferences instead of software developer conferences. And Who do I want to write the secure code? I want the developers to write the secure code. And I had written this book thinking, like the software engineering, programming classes, all of them, the computer science classes, they'll take this book and they're like, no, this is a security book. It's not a developer book. And so I was like, I need to write a developer book. And my publisher is like, oh yeah, let's do it. And so I basically was like, let's think about past Tanya and all the things she didn't know and what it's like from the other side. Because the first book is for the security professional or a person that wants to become a security professional, where this one is for, I do not work in security. I'm tasked with making these amazing applications and I want my customers to love them. I want them to work well. I want them to be beautiful and fast. But gosh darn, I really hope they're secure, right? And so I wanted it to be sort of the flip side of things. So what is it like to experience the secure system development lifecycle? Like, how do I write secure code? Having someone yell at you does not make you write more secure code, in my experience. Or, I scanned this and I found some things wrong and you email them a PDF. That's nice. But the idea of this book is, my hope is that you read this book and then you're just creating better code. So when we do scan it, it finds very little or nothing. The pen tester comes and they have to work so hard to find something wrong. This is what I want.
You bring up a really interesting point, and I think for our listeners, many of them probably realize this, but some may not. But I think maybe the casual listener might assume that the software security team and the software development team are really just two different branches of the same skill set, the same population. But as you point out, that's actually not true at all. That the developers versus the security folk have very different career paths and skill sets, and yet they're expected to cooperate. Could you just talk a little bit about what those different paths are and how you end up on one team or the other?
So software development's a really obvious career path, like becoming an accountant, right? So like you do certain steps and then you're a software developer. So you go to
Yes.
college, you go to university, you
Yes.
take a programming boot camp, and then you try to get your first job. You might do a co-op placement or an internship. You might volunteer somewhere or do an open source project, and then eventually you have enough experience and someone hires you, right? And then if you do well, the sky's the limit. But for joining an application security team, Paul, it is weird. I have worked with AppSec people who are like, oh yeah, my last job was a teacher or a nurse. I've worked with people where their last job, they were a sysadmin, they worked in help desk, they were an auditor, they were a lawyer. They had all
Really
sorts of,
interesting.
like a lot of project managers. Project managers can make great AppSec folks because gosh, they keep everyone on target. um, but people come from all these different walks of life. And then me, as the person that was a software developer, I have this huge secret skill when I do AppSec because I can read code and write code, right? And a fair number of people, a surprising number of people that work in AppSec can't do that. And so they don't know, oh, I could just automate this, or oh, I could just write a script to do that, or I could just add this to the scheduler and then it'll just run itself. And I don't have to manually start it every morning. That's a waste of time and brain cells. Your brain's so much better than that, right? And so they're coming at it from different angles. And quite often the security team is coming from it at an angle of, well, why are all of you doing that? Don't you know? And the software developers are coming at it from where I came from, where there was no security class when I went to college. And I went to college in the 90s. So that was a while ago. I'm
Yeah.
old. I have been informed by my children. I'm very old. They're like, you were alive before the internet? Yes, ma'am.
But you're
Yes.
younger than me, Tanya. So you're the
Yeah,
junior one on this podcast, I'm afraid
I
to
don't
say.
think,
Yes.
but even if you go to school right now, they're
Yeah.
not going to teach you application security and they're not going to teach you secure coding. If you're extraordinarily lucky, there might be a web app hacking course. Well, they will teach you the OWASP top 10 and you'll play with Juice Shop, which is an intentionally vulnerable web app from OWASP that is amazing. And then you might get a network security class or identity and access management class, but there's no way they're going to teach you how to do input validation and then show you how to use a fuzzer to test your input validation and explain all the different nuances of what is input and what is not input. And they're just not going to teach that. And I've approached universities and colleges like quite often with my book, and all of them responded the same way. Oh, well, if you'd like to, we'll hire you as an adjunct professor. You will create a course for a semester. We'll own all your intellectual property after, and we will pay you less than minimum wage. What do you say? And then I'm like, oh, I'll be teaching my class for free on the internet. Thank you. If it's going to be almost for free, but on your terms, I'll do it completely for free on my terms.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like to volunteer for multi-million-dollar organizations. I don't know about you, like highly profitable organizations that are for profit.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
The other example that often gets used is architects and or mechanical engineers, right? Where
the ring,
right, and just a core part of that is building safe structures that are going to be able to withstand the pressures that they're going to endure and have long lifespans and so on. It's just baked into the profession itself, and yet software architects. No, not really. It's about getting to hello world and then, okay, it said hello world. That's all you need to.
The hello world lesson is so insecure too.
Yeah.
So the first thing you do is put it to the screen, right? And the second thing you do is say, what is your name? And then the third thing you do is you say, hello, your name, and reflect back without any input validation, output encoding, security headers, no nothing. And then we reflect cross-site scripting to the user. We teach them wrong from the very first lesson.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating that they're like, oh, well, we would, but we can't because of our own reasons. That I feel like the government needs to say, you teach safety or you're no longer accredited university.
So you didn't get this as part of your education as a programmer. How did you, when you sat down to think, what would I have needed to or wanted to learn about, where did your mind go?
So the first thing that I cover in the book and that I always want to talk about is programming advice that applies to literally every language. Because we need to, so I always use this as the first example because it's the absolute most important thing you can do, which is input validation. So, this is very frustrating because in our industry, a lot of people say, yeah, input sanitization. I'm like, no, validation, then either sanitization or escaping. Second step, and only if you need special characters. We validate that, like, let's say it's a date of birth. So first of all, it better be in the past, right? It should probably be less than 150 years ago. It should definitely actually be a date, right? It should be in the correct format that you are accepting a date.
Right.
And then we do any other thing. So let's say your last name was O'Malley with a single quote. So you have to accept some special characters. You validate that it's only the characters you're planning on accepting. And then you're like, okay, so I do have to accept single quotes. Single quotes are dangerous. So I'm going to escape that or sanitize that out. Right. And so repeatedly, I see the wrong advice everywhere. And that's less secure advice. Is it better than not sanitizing at all? Yeah, it is better to sanitize than do nothing, for sure. But that's not the first step, and that's not the best step. And so I start with this advice that just applies to absolutely everything. And then I dive really deep into 10 programming languages and 8 frameworks and 5 different technologies, because a lot of us are using serverless.
That's
a lot of us are building IoT. We are all using APIs, right? And there's slight differences for those things. And a ton of us are using like React, Angular, Vue.js. So many people use Flask. They use, SQL. They use all these things, right? And I want them to know, like, listen, this feature is super dangerous. And I would prefer you didn't use it. Or if you do use it, here's like 5 things to do to make it safe. And guess what? The thing that was most surprising is such cool things that are available that no one's using. So like Angular, Vue.js, React, they have so many amazing security features. I'm like, let's use all of them. Let's turn it on, right? And so just like a page about what all the cool things are that you can take advantage of so you don't have to write the code yourself. And it has been thoroughly tested and you can trust it. So yeah, I go through like what awesome things you should do in each language. And then like, these are some gotchas and things I need you to avoid. Dragons be here.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the challenges right now, which is on the one hand, development has gotten so much easier. There are incredibly powerful platforms out there to help you develop. And now, of course, these days, AI as well, potentially to help you create code. There's tons of open source packages you can just grab and pull functionality into whatever you're building.
Mm-hmm.
And as you point out, there are risks that go along with those as well. What should developers who have that instinct of, oh, I'm going to grab that and use it because it does what I need it to do, or oh, I'm going to use this platform, it's going to like really speed things up. What should they be looking for to temper that instinct and say, hold on, you should check these things out or verify these things before you go ahead and use it?
So if you're going to get a library or a third-party component, you're going to download it from somewhere, you should download it from the official source every time. If there's some other site that's hosting it, I don't care. We cannot trust them. And then if there's a checksum or a signature that you can validate, that's way better, because then you know that it's authentic, it's from the right place, and you know that the integrity is intact. So that's even better. Then I like to use a software composition analysis tool, SCA for short. Sometimes they're called software supply chain tools because marketing. But basically, it will scan it and tell you. So it'll scan your app. It'll figure out all the libraries, frameworks, all the third-party things that you have going on. And then it will compare it to a list that it has of things that it knows has vulnerabilities. And then if you have a good one, so this is a new feature that just started in 2022, and about like a bunch of them have it and a bunch of them don't. So I would not buy one that does not have this feature. It's called, well, some of them call it exploitability, but most of them are calling it reachability. So let's say you have the math library. Paul, we're not going to do all the math. We're not going to do every single type of math. Maybe we're going to do a derivative, right? And that's it. So let's say the math library has this giant vulnerability. Okay, but is it in the derivative function, the one that I'm calling? No. So is there no path from within my code to the vulnerability? Is the vulnerability not reachable? Well, then that means if we never get there, then it's not exploitable, except for in the case of log4j, which was very special and unique. Generally, if it's not reachable, it's usually not exploitable. And so then I'm like, I'll upgrade off that later. But if it is reachable, I'm like, ooh, I better run, not walk. Because I have a big vulnerability in my code that people know about.
Right. So if developers are not learning this as part of their official education as developers, let's talk about the approach that you take in your new book to walk them through that process and how to make it real for them, relevant to the particular work that they're doing.
So I teach secure coding, from what I understand, differently than everyone else in the industry. And I've always been kind of a weirdo, Paul. I don't mean to do it. I just tend to always be kind of off. One of these things is not like the other. I don't know why. I don't know if you know that Sesame Street song from when you were little.
Of course I do, yes. Things is not like the other.
The way most other people teach is they'll teach about vulnerabilities. And then they teach you how to defend against each one of those vulnerabilities. So they'll talk about the OWASP top 10, CWEs, CVEs, things you hear about in the news. And then they're like, oh, injection, it's bad. Here's why it's bad. It's so bad. Let me show you how bad. I will do an exploit. Oh my gosh, so bad. And then they're like, here's how you defend. And I was like, well, that seems really backwards. So what I came up with was a list of things, of way to write secure code. So when we get input, this is what we do. When we do output, this is what we do. When we handle files, this is what we do. When we must manage memory ourselves, this is what we do. And this is how you do a great job of it. And it's funny because right now I have I'm always teaching on the side from Semgrep. I'm always doing secure coding training. So I have this one client and they have people all around the world. So we did one session in North America and we're doing one in Europe. And we did the one in North America. And I always tell my clients, like, I don't need to teach the top 10. You're already going to know it once we teach, like, we're going to do the defenses. And then the top 10 is a total waste of time. And they're like, no, we need it. They always say they need it. And so we did the class a few weeks ago and we were planning the next class. And he's like, so you're right. We don't need to do the top 10. We can skip it. Because every single one, I'm like, okay, injection. So we already know how to defend against this. This doesn't apply to us anymore. You do number 1, number 2, number 4. Boom, you're done. You don't need any of this. And like the entire top 10, except for XML external entities, which is a server setting, which has nothing to do with secure coding. But like all of them are covered. 100% of them are covered, except for the one that is infrastructure. And so they're like, ew, I guess we didn't need those. I'm like, no, but if you want the top 10, I'll teach you whatever you want. Right. And then so I thought it was funny how this is the first time where they're like, you just skip that and you're right. So I feel like we keep trying to scare the pants off of people because we think fear, uncertainty, and doubt will get buy-in. And instead I focus on this is how you make a completely kick-ass app. Like you can have a beautiful app that's fast and it looks great and it does everything the customer asks for. But if I can hack into it in 10 minutes, would you call that high quality? And everyone says no. And I'm like, we want our apps to be tough and rugged and something people can depend on. And most people agree. And I'm like, that means it needs to be secure. So let's make our app like a badass.
My guess is developers would say, yeah, sure, except my employer, the incentives in my organization don't center on security. They center on getting stuff out in production on the timeline that they've created. And that's the
perverse incentives.
Yeah, perverse incentives, or at least non-aligned incentives. So they're not perverse in that, sure, you want to hit your deadline, but security just doesn't figure into it. I'm guessing you hear that in the classes that you teach. And is there stuff in this book to address those sorts of structural environmental factors for developers of like, how do you talk to your employer about we need to reprioritize things?
Yes. So one of the things is if you learn secure coding, you're going to have less bugs later, which means you have less things to do later, right? So if you are not creating the bugs in the first place, just everything's better, right? You save money, you save time, all these things. So that's one. So training yourself, and that could be reading my book. I have a free online secure coding class in the Semgrep Academy. And we can put a link to that in the show notes if you want. Every single thing in there is free. There is no upsell. They just hope that eventually when you need one of what Semgrep sells, that you consider them, right? Which I think is great. I feel that's a great marketing strategy. Earn lots of trust, right? But so and there's other secure coding classes online you can take too, and some of them are free, right? So train yourself. So then throughout the book, I talk about ask this question, poke and prod about this, bring this up in the conversation, because when you do, it can change the entire trajectory of a project. And I also bring that up in regard to privacy as well. And software developers often have to do what they're told to do, right? And, if you're told to build an app like Cambridge Analytica, as an example, which was built in the city that I live in, like, I'm just doing my job. I'm like, you're doing your job. You're also being complicit in violating your users' privacy. And is that something that makes you wake up and excited to go to work, right? So you can ask the questions. Hey, is this a good idea? So, it was Cambridge Analytica's entire business model to violate privacy, but for most of us, it's not. Most of us. So another example where I'm going to make fun of the city of Victoria is I went to go park downtown, and they're like, oh, download our app. So I download the app, and it says, I want access to your contacts, your photos, your files. And I was just like, yeah, no. And then I tweet at them, and they say, read our privacy policy. I'm like, yeah, your privacy policy sucks. You do not need to see my photos. You do not need to see my messages.
Yeah.
No. Right. And so I always just pay at the little meter thing, because I won't accept their terms of service, because their terms of service suck. So Victoria, get with it. But
Right.
I feel like just asking a question out loud, or saying, I'm not sure I feel comfortable with that. Do we think our users will appreciate this? Right? Because I went to a site. So my friend was telling me that you can play D&D, but where it's sci-fi. And he was like, it's called Warhammer 40,000, which I've never heard of. I've never played D&D, but I'm like, oh, this sounds interesting. Maybe I'll look into it. And the first thing it did was ask for access to my hard drive. And I was like, guess I'm never going to play Warhammer 40,000. I guess I'm done. Just goodbye.
Unfortunately, of course, many users don't know enough. They don't connect the dots. Why does this Compass app need my contact information?
When we give access to a site like that, if that site ends up having one field with cross-site scripting, that means the attacker can go see my hard drive.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I click, I also have to click on a link, or there could be stored cross-site scripting, in which case I have no defense whatsoever. We talk a lot about least privilege, assume breach, and other things, and how to design and code our systems to be more secure.
One of the things that we've seen, certainly in the last few years, is a lot more attention and talking anyway in the US and Canada as well around this topic of secure by design, and in the US, secure by demand. So both trying to get software producers and end user organizations to both raise the bar. Software producers produce more secure code. End user organizations raise your bar that you're asking vendors to clear in order to put their stuff on your network. Are you seeing any evidence that's having an impact in terms of the way developers and development organizations are looking at their priorities? And what do you think is a policy fix for some of these kind of endemic issues around quality and secure code, lack of incentives, lack of accountability, those types of things?
I would like it if there was, for starters, a place where people can report security issues, and then we know that they will be followed up on and that there will be accountability. I'd like there to be a place where we can report someone's not following this policy. Because so I live in Canada, and the Canadian Revenue Agency, when I worked for them, I wrote their web app security policy, and they are not following it. And I've written letters to the Prime Minister's office, to their minister, and they keep saying, that's none of your business, and we can't talk about it because security. I'm like, no, but you're not doing security. I want to talk about that. So because security? Really?
We're doing security through obscurity.
Yeah, but they're not even doing that.
But they're not.
And so I would want that. I would want a place where they are held accountable if they are not following the policies. Then, I would love it if I could write So when I work places and I do AppSec, I make an AppSec policy. And so we decide what level of security assurance is acceptable for our org. And then we make a policy that we think will bring us to that level for all apps. So it's like every new app must have this type of test or these many types of tests, and we must remediate things at this level. We must have these things implemented, and these technologies and layers of abstraction or defenses must be included. And then for old apps, we must test or apps that are currently in production, sometimes called legacy. We must have this happen every month. Must have this happen every week. We must have these things, whatever, right? And by having a policy that states how we must treat all of our applications, and especially having a secure coding guideline or standard, it's like one of the things will be your code must meet the standard. And if it does not meet the standard, it must start to meet the standard by X number of weeks from which you have been informed. If you need help meeting the standard, we will, send you resources or whatever the thing is so that you can comply. And if we had something like that for, first of all of the government agencies, like, I need my data to be secure, Paul. The Canadian Revenue Agency lost my parents' identities on the dark web. They have to have credit monitoring for the rest of their lives. There's a huge class action lawsuit against CRA, and it came out recently that they did not report over 40 security incidents to the Information Commissioner because they didn't feel they were, what is that word, that legal word?
Material.
Material. And they were material. And I want people fired. I know that sounds mean, but I'm sorry, there has to be accountability or suspended or demoted or something. Like, come on. I want it to mean something when you break these policies. And at first, we do everything we can to help everyone comply. And we do that for 2 or 3 years to get everyone. And then after that, it's like, I'm sorry, you've had 2 or 3 years grace. Now we have a stick. And if you are not compliant, it's because you've chosen not to be compliant, right? So I'd really like to see that. And then I'd really like to see education for the public. So in British Columbia, where I live in Canada, the government issued a $22 million grant to a nonprofit to help everyone get ready for quantum computing. Why didn't they do that for cyber? There's nothing like that for cyber. Why? I've been volunteering for the Canadian government since 2018 to help add cybersecurity to high school and children curriculum. But the place where I volunteer, the ICTC, they're a Crown corporation, and essentially it is optional for universities and colleges to decide if they want to do that content. And so like maybe 250, 300, 400 schools do it and the rest just don't. I'm sorry, mandatory. Digital literacy is mandatory. Literacy's mandatory. Right?
We said this earlier in the podcast, when there are so many analogous industries and activities, whether it's food production or building construction or heavy machinery or what have you, where seemingly as a species, as societies and economies, we realized decades ago, oh, this is hugely important technology, but there are all these risks that go along with it. So we need to put guardrails up and manage that risk in the spirit of public health and safety and so on. And yet with software, which arguably just touches and runs everything, all of those things plus other stuff, healthcare, we can't seem to wrap our arms around that same concept of like public health and public welfare and being like, no, we gotta insert ourselves into the build process, the development process in the name of public health and safety.
Right now, we're letting the industry decide.
Yeah.
And guess what it's doing? It's profiting. And I'm profiting too, just to be clear. So like when I do training for an enterprise, I charge as much as I can because I have a mortgage and I want to not have a mortgage. But when I deal with individuals, like that's why I sold my company with a deal that all my content would become free in public because I want to move our industry forward. But right now we're letting capitalism decide how we do cybersecurity. And that is a gigantic conflict of interest. We need the government to get involved. And so when I went to B-Sides Ottawa, which if you are watching rather than just listening, you can see I'm wearing a t-shirt. So I was there last week and the Treasury Board had a table. So that is the policymaker department for Canada. And then the CSC, the Canadian Security Establishment, that's the cyber arm of Defense Canada. I spoke to both of them and I was like, listen, like we got to do stuff. And they're like, okay, let's talk. Because I wrote this book so that it's very easy to make a secure coding policy out of it. I wrote the book so that it's very easy to make an application security policy. I want people in the book, I'm like, copy this and make a guideline where you work. I do not say copy this onto the internet so people can steal my intellectual property and not buy my book. But I really want you to use my work to do your job better. And I'm planning on making a cheat sheet out of every single section, and where it's like you join my newsletter, you get the pretty cheat sheet, because I want it to be as easy as humanly possible. And so I'm trying to work with the Canadian government. I said earlier before we started recording, annoying, and you said thorough, relentless, persistent.
I am a writer.
All of us need to push. All of us need to talk to our government officials and say, this isn't acceptable. So if all of us start calling, something will happen. If Tanya just calls Alistair, that's my member of parliament, all the time, eventually, well, he's very polite and he always takes my calls. But it can't just be Tanya. It has to be a bunch of us pushing, and then it will matter.
Okay, final question, picking up on the same theme. With your past books, you've done these series of videos to basically give a video version of what's in the book and, just release that for free to the public and allow them to watch these videos and so on. You're very focused on different learning methods and styles, and this is part of that. So just talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing with the latest book.
Alice and Bob Learn Secure Coding has 15 chapters. And so it comes out in February, but we all know it takes a while for everyone to get their copy and have it shipped to them. So maybe 2 months after that, I'm going to start doing a live stream every month with friends, just like I did last time, where people can come live and interact with me and whoever I've invited for that subject. And we're going to do one chapter at a time for 15 months. We did it last time and it has thousands and thousands of views. I also released it as an audio only podcast last time, which had fewer listens than the views. So we'll see if I do both this time. And then I'm going to save it to my YouTube channel permanently. And someone wrote me like 2 weeks ago and she said, oh, I bought your book. And it said that there were these things on your YouTube channel. And then they were there. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff on my YouTube channel. There's a lot of stuff there. And she's like, and I'm watching them one at a time. That's so cool. Thank you. Like even buying your book this many years later, it's still there. I'm like, oh yeah. And so I want to make it so that you can hear us talk about the chapter, what's in it, what it means to us. And then I sort of do a little interview with each of the people and their specialty that is in that chapter. And then we're going to answer the questions that are in the end of every chapter. And that is fun because sometimes my guests disagree with me. And then in the end, we usually always agree. Like we kind of suss it out. They're like, well, I like to think of it like this and this and this. And I'm like, but in the end, they're like, yeah. Because we're friends for a reason, right? We really care about security. And so last time I had Adam Shostak on to talk about threat modeling. I had my friends Ray and Aaron from Hella Secure for comedic relief. Yeah, I had just basically everyone I could think of on to talk about what their specialty is, because sometimes hearing it from someone else is way better, right? And so I have an entire chapter on vulnerabilities and what they mean and why they're scary and how you already know how to defend against them because of the previous part of the book. But having people on that are amazing, talented pen testers to talk about the terrible things they do, I think that'll help emphasize my point.
Red teamers and pen testers, absolutely. They're poking for holes in your code. So who better to talk to? You've got an amazing network. So I'm sure that these 15 episodes are going to be a little bit of a who's who in InfoSec and secure application development. Definitely worth keeping on your radar for when it comes. The book is out February 5th. How can people get their copy, Tanya?
Yes, so you have two choices. So one, you can go to my website, shehackspurple.ca, and then click on my books, and it has a list of every single place that sells the books. Or you can go to Amazon for your country. So I'm in Canada. It's for sale there. It's for sale in Australia. It's for sale in India. It's for sale in the UK, etc. And so go to the Amazon for your country where you usually order things, and most of them have it. If for some reason you can't get a hold of it, send me an email at tanya@shehackspurple.ca and I will make sure you get a copy. If you have security champions, if you're an AppSec leader and you have a team of security champions, so people on your different dev teams, and you're planning on buying a whole bunch, again, send me an email and I will get you a 20% discount and I'll shove it full of stickers and sign all of them for you for free. So it's a good deal. Yeah. If people want to learn more about me or follow me or see all my content, just look up She Hacks Purple and all of it is me. I used to have an imposter who impersonated me, who had bought a domain similar to mine, but she's gone now. So that is great.
Wow.
And so now
Wow.
all of She Hacks Purple is me.
Tanya Janca, it is amazing to have you back in the studio and so great. And congratulations on writing your latest book. You're an inspiration and I'm really glad to have you on. And we will include a link to the book. And thank you so much for writing it and trying to educate us about this really important topic.
Thank you for helping me spread my message, Paul. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. And we'll have you back on the podcast again soon.
Awesome.